Hello, I'm Ron Fox for Get Woodworking, and we're going to carry on talking about routers and some of the things you can do with them. This is the cutter I shall be using most. In fact, one of these is without doubt the most used individual cutter in my workshop. Here are some smaller straight edges than the one we were just looking at. There's no point in having a whacking great straight edge if you're making something small like this hinge jig. So there's our straight edges. There's our router. There's our cutter, and we start off by taking our material, which in this case is a bit of medium thickness MDF, 12 or 15 millimeter, works very well. The jig works with a guide bush and a cutter. The guide bush and cutter have to be decided on before you make the jig. So what we do, on the edge of our material, we draw a rectangle the length of our hinge. We decide what guide bush and cutter we're going to use and calculate the offset. Now, don't worry about that for the moment. What we're doing here is seeing how we make the cut accurately. But what I've got, there is a rectangle which is the length of the hinge. It's wider than the hinge because you can move it across different thickness doors. The offset, or the margin, depending on how you like to call it, of the guide bush and cutter is 5 millimeters. So I've drawn that line 5 millimeters around the outline of the hinge. As I say, don't worry if that seems a bit obscure at the moment. We are interested in cutting out that outer line as accurately as possible. So we draw it as accurately as possible, and we can take our time about that until we've got it right. When we've got it right, we can take our straight edges, and what we are going to do before we put the straight edges on here is to take that board and rough cut, taking care not to go up to the line, that outline. We're not going to try to cut it exactly, by all means do so, but I can't cut that accurately. I'm going to rough cut it, and the result will look like this. There we are. See, rough cut. I haven't gone up to the pencil lines. It's the outer pencil line I'm working to. That is now ready for trimming. Trimming to exact size. We take our straight edges and we take some double-sided tape and we tape our straight edges onto the lines there. We take a scrap of the same thickness material and tape it on there. And I'll just hold one straight edge on for the moment. Now I'm going to use this cutter. We put the cutter in our router. We set the plunge so that the bearing runs on the straight edge and the blades span the thickness of the material. And we simply come along here and we will have a cross piece there and the other straight edge there. And we proceed in a clockwise direction around the three sides of that open rectangle. What you will then get is that cut absolutely square, absolutely straight, absolutely smooth, and just the right size for our jig. Your standard knife and some rough surface that you can cut on without doing any damage to a bench top or anything else that's a bit fancy is necessary. You'll think of that the second time when you've cut through some nice polished surface. And we peel the backing off the tape. It's not a lot of good if you bite your nails, this particular part of the job. You'll need an assistant. This one goes on here. They tell us that dust or adhesive or tape will not stick to a dusty surface, which is bad news for the average routing workshop. There we are. I've clamped those two there so that you can see they're right on the pencil lines. What I've got to do now is to take a piece of scrap and tape this between. Well, now I've cut a piece to drop in there to complete the three sides of the rectangle. So I've just put a bit of tape on that, peeling the backing off. It's just about the hardest part of the job. Dropping this just on the pencil line. There we are. Now, here's a 1/4 inch shank cutter. It's a modern cutter. It's got the K mark on it. So we can put that in up to its full extent. Tighten. Now what we can do with this, we can either clamp it over the edge like this so that we've got room. I can actually do that. Or if we wanted it on here, we could raise it on a couple of bits of batten or the other straight edges. We still want to clamp it. Right, so what I'm going to do is to switch on, bring the router against the straight edge. I'm going to come up, across and back. Here we go. Go round again just to make sure I've taken everything off. Look again, there's a little bit in the corner that I can take out. And that's all there is to it.